MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 121. Martin Kampmann versus Jake Shields. Guys, let's talk about these two fighters. Let's start with Martin Kampmann. Martin Kampmann is a very improved fighter, a guy with a multitude of skills, and has always been a very tough fighter. But the question is he for real? Is he a guy that can really contend with the top guys in the welterweight division? And his biggest test came with Paul Thiago. Paul Thiago was a guy who is a premier striker in the welterweight division. Here's a guy who's knocked out Josh Koscheck in seconds. Okay? That's never been done before. Look where Josh Koscheck is right now. He had to face this guy. And people are questioning, is he for real? Well, let me tell you something, guys. He's for real. He was able to outperform Paul Thiago standing up. So he definitely passed the test that he is a really good striker. And he also has many wins by submission. His Muay Thai is really good, which makes him dangerous against wrestlers. You know, because when wrestlers go down low, if you're a good Muay Thai guy, you can make a wrestler pay for that. He has a multitude of skills. He's good at all of them, which makes him a true mixed martial artist and a dangerous guy, and basically a top-level guy in the welterweight division. Now let's talk about Jake Shields. Guys, I'm going to make a statement here. I think Jake Shields is one of the most underrated champions that we have right now. I mean, from my perspective, it just doesn't seem like he gets enough credit for what he's done. And he has accomplished a lot. I mean, just look at the guys that he has beaten. I mean, you're talking about wins over Yushin Okami, Carlos Condit, Mike Pyle. I mean, these are big names. Paul Daly, Jason Miller, Robbie Lawler, and the biggest one of all, of course, was Dan Henderson. I mean, that was a real amazing win, and the way he did it was so unexpected because, you know, we know that Jake Shields is a world-class wrestler, but you have Dan Henderson, okay, who's a legend, I mean, who's been doing wrestling for a long time, one of the best out there, and he was able to out-wrestle Dan Henderson, okay, for 5 rounds, and this is after he got absolutely rocked. I mean, Henderson blasted him with a huge shot. I mean, it looks similar to the one, or even worse, the one that hit Michael Bisping and just flattened Bisping, who has fought a light heavyweight. So, you know, Henderson is a big guy, has taken on some really big, dangerous guys. And you have a guy in Shields who's really naturally a welterweight. And, you know, he's moving up to middleweight, back to welterweight. He holds championship belts in 2 weight classes. Now, I know it's not the UFC, you know, but there's very few guys that have done that. There's only 2 that come to mind, BJ Penn and Randy Couture. Now, let me tell you something, no matter what promotion you fight under, okay, Jake Shields has beaten top guys to protect that belt and to get those belts, all right? You're talking about Dan Henderson, Jason Miller, all right? These are top tier guys. Paul Daly, Yushin Okami. I mean, he had to fight these guys, all right, to defend and to get his belts and on the way to get the belts. So he deserves all the credit in the world. And you know what they say, to be a legend, you got to beat the legend. Well, he sure did in his last fight. I mean, this guy is really something else. And let me tell you something else. When you are able to switch weight classes and be successful in both weight classes, that already puts you in that pound-for-pound discussion. And he is one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question about it. He has to be. Very few fighters get a championship belt by going from one weight class to the other when they face very good competition. All right? These are guys that I mentioned that he's beaten, that are, a lot of them are in the UFC, all right, or left the UFC because of a grievance, that are either in the mix, top-level guys. He's defeated them. So I just think he's not getting the credit he deserves. And then, of course, if you think about it, when he came from Strikeforce, there was a lot of competition. You would think a guy like this should get an instant title shot. Well, I don't know what happened, you know, the negotiations, and what if he lost the Dan Henderson fight? What would have happened then? And then, of course, you have the Ultimate Fighter show. These guys have to finish up. Then who knows what's going to happen. Maybe one of those guys gets injured. And then, of course, you need months to prepare for the next fight. I mean, this guy might be out for a year. I mean, he's going to be sitting around. I don't know what the contract states when he comes to the UFC. So who knows, what's going to happen with that. The bottom line is they put a good fight in front of him, and this is the fight that he's going to take. Now, of course, for Shields, it's tough. I mean, if he loses the fight, it's going to be really tough because it's unlikely he'll get a title shot then. But, this is all speculation. Despite the fact where these two fighters are standing right now, I mean, Jake Shields, I mean, his wrestling is just unbelievable. I mean, he's proven that. And, for those people saying that, oh yeah, Dan Henderson is older now, I'm not buying that. Dan Henderson is looking better than ever. I mean, his last fight, I mean, he fought Bisping. I mean, that was one of his most dominating wins that I've seen. It seems to be that he's getting better. Dan Henderson's well-rounded, dangerous striker, dangerous wrestler. I mean, I've never seen Dan Henderson being out-wrestled like that in 5 rounds by a guy who's really, well, supposed to be a welterweight. And you have Henderson who has fought a light heavyweight. So it just goes to show what a beast Jake Shields is. Jake Shields is a beast. That's the statement I want to make here, guys. I think that Kampmann, although also a good wrestler, he should use his Muay Thai. Even though you have to understand that Jake Shields is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, has many wins by submission as well, which makes him very dangerous also. And the fact that he can take guys down, submissions come easier, and there's more submissions that you can do from the top. So, I mean, his Muay Thai is really good. If he can keep Shields away from him and keep a distance and make Shields pay for those takedowns, then Kampmann may have a chance in this fight. Kampmann's also a very, very good stand-up fighter. He may have the advantage strictly just standing up. Now, if the fight gets to the ground, I see Shields having an advantage, and an advantage with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well as the wrestling. So I'm going to make a prediction in this fight. I'm going to go with Jake Shields. I'd like to know what you think about the fight, as well as the UFC 121 card. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video, and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.